the Gentlementor.
That's great. So, yeah, we were just going to talk about toxic masculinity. One of the big ideas behind what we're doing is that we are kind of entering. I'll speak for myself. I keep saying we, like I'm French. Um, the, our experience, we're similar age, and we're kind of entering into that. Would you want to call it the second half? I don't want to call it the golden years, man. I'm scared of that golden years stuff. And
Yeah.
we want to find a way to kind of impart. We both grew up. I'm probably more rural, and Mark's probably more urban. But we had men in our lives, fathers and grandfathers and uncles, and even neighbors and stuff, who were great, positive role models. And we got to looking around, and it seems like the only thing you hear about male or masculinity more always involves this toxic qualifier.
Yeah.
And so what we really wanted to do is start to examine masculinity and kind of, I don't know, pushback's probably too strong a word, but kind of suggest that it doesn't have to be toxic. That there are positive masculine things that we can share and impart, and even when you talk about negative or toxic masculinity, I think a lot of, in my opinion, what's happened is that lack of mentoring and role models has a generation of young people who don't know how to control certain behaviors and urges. They don't have strong men to stand up and go, that's not how we do that. We don't treat people that way. And so we're just kind of getting together and talking about things that we see, observe, ways we can influence culture positively.
So here's my question to start out with, because I was thinking about this today. I was thinking, okay, we're going to start out with a question. So let's just very basic, and this is not profound for anybody. How would you describe masculinity? What is? Let's first get a kind of baseline, and then I was talking to my daughter earlier, and I said, how would you describe masculinity? And she goes, well, first of all, I think you need to describe it how society is, figure out how society looks at it, and then what it actually is. I'm like, well, where do I go to find out what it actually is? You know, I mean, I could go to Webster's, I could go to scripture, I could go to Greek mythology. There's a lot of things in there you could go to. So I don't know. Shoot, what do you think masculinity is?
I mean, it's that is a good way to look at it. Is to think about, because I agree with what Doug was saying. How it's like it's if you don't know what it is, it feels like it's only negative, right?
Yeah.
Or you hear toxic masculinity, and it sounds like everything that's masculine is bad. And I don't know, to pinpoint it down to what's masculine, I really don't know how to describe it besides like I guess the opposite of toxic masculinity, where you are emotionally intelligent. I think it's good to be resilient, but it's also, because I don't want to say tough, because putting tough towards masculinity just makes it seem like femininity is weak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also saying that women can't be masculine and men can't be feminine. It's like, so we're only one of the two. So I think just being able to be emotionally intelligent, be self-secure, be self-secure, be open to other possibilities of how people look at the world, how they react, how they act about the world.
I like that. Yeah.
It seems very generic. Like it feels like well, just do it. It feels like a
Nike
cop-out
approach. Yeah.
It does, but I believe that's what it is. And I think we just put too much pressure of men having to be masculine or only masculine, where we can't be feminine, and vice versa. It's like women can't be feminine and masculine. It's like the same. It's like the different levels, but thinking that we're all the same, or that we can express both sides. I think that's what could, I don't know, take away the toxic masculinity part of it.
So is it okay for a man to can a man be masculine and exhibit feminine qualities?
Yes.
Okay. For example, what would those feminine qualities be? What would consider a feminine quality that a man could?
I mean, you could be caring, you could be nurturing, you could maybe more emotional, which I think it's a hard word to say, because if you think like being emotional is feminine, then I think people could grasp like, well, you can't be over emotional because that's too feminine, or like you can't be it's either all or nothing, black or white type of thinking, which is a little tough. I mean, it's easy thinking, but to live in that middle area, that can be tough to get used to. Maybe like you have like a moment of like, yeah, I'm not like that, or like, no, I'm emotional, but to be that your day to day, it's a process. But like anything that you find masculine, it's not automatically bad. But you could like, have a beer with the guys and not talk about women as if they're objects. You could still talk about your emotions. You could still talk about your feelings. And I think maybe having a beer with the guys is maybe more masculine on the outside to a lot of people. But then if you just talk about how you feel, how your day was, how's the family, I think that's the mixture. Like that could be a mixture. It's not the only one, obviously.
When I listen to what you say, I hear a lot of like, I guess I would call it kind of societal false positives, kind of like what you were saying, where we think that the characteristic of strong is either masculine or feminine. When it's not really either. That's where our head is. Or going to drink with beer with the guys. These are things that we kind of, I guess, culturally, our society, somewhere we've got the idea that this is a male thing, this is a female thing, and most of those stuff just aren't. The attributes are things we've assigned in whatever, wherever we learn our norms, I guess. And it's so difficult when you're talking about something that's kind of nebulous anyway. What is masculinity? Oh, that couldn't be much bigger. What is love? What's the true nature of light? What is absolute zero? So
things that are hard to measure.
It's challenging to put in, but I think we start to kind of break away the parts of the stone that are not what we see in it, and that's one of the things we see is that we've kind of got these lists of assumptions culturally that are, oh, well, this is a guy thing or this is a girl thing, that it can't be either or both. Or some days, we all have, you call it mood swings or brain chemistry. Some days you feel a little different than you did the day before.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I think the point about you said not viewing members of the opposite sex, I think, as objects. And I think one of the great missing points is we lack an appreciation for the inherent value in other human beings, no matter what they look like or where they come from or how they're different. They still have value.
Yes. And that, to me, that is a quality of masculinity that has probably been lost. A quality of humanity, let's just say that. But I think a true measure of masculinity is having that ultimate respect for human beings, no matter who they are, what they believe, or where they'd associate with, that they have value, like you said. So the gospel of Wikipedia says that masculinity in Western society includes traits in men, including strength, courage, independence, leadership, and assertiveness. And so I think for a minute, I'm looking at that. I read that a little bit earlier, and I'm like, is that masculine traits, or are those just humanity traits? Don't we all want to be? We all want to be strong.
Yeah.
We want to be strong mentally. We want to be strong. Physically. Physically doesn't determine whether you're masculine or not. Whether how many, logs of wood I can chop and create fire. How many ricks of firewood I can bag in one day. That's not a true measure of strength. Courage, independence, leadership, assertiveness. Those are things that I think most people in the world want to have good qualities of. So, I'm just kind of confused that Western society has classified masculinity, and then we've taken a step further into toxic masculinity. And I don't know. Thoughts on the manlyhood, masculinity definition in the Western culture?
I think it's too much that it's one-sided, where it's I mean, on that definition, that it say it, you said it has to do with like mostly men, or like it doesn't say just men, but it says like mostly, or
it says, I'll read it word for word. Standards of manliness or masculinity vary across different cultures and historical periods. Traits traditionally viewed as masculine in Western society include strength, courage, independence, leadership, and assertiveness. And yeah, granted, a guy that has those things can certainly
Read that list again. That right at the end.
strength,
Strength,
courage,
courage,
independence,
independence,
leadership,
leadership.
and assertiveness.
Don't we all kind of want to believe that we're that
That's
to
what
some
I'm saying.
degree? I mean, isn't that who
that's
we'd
a
like to
humanity
be?
thing, right? We
In a
all
positive way, not in
And-
in a depressive way, but you know.
And I would never look at a woman who in leadership is very good or very assertive and go, wow, she's very manly. I wouldn't, I would,
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I would think, wow, that's qualities of humanity that I hope to one day have as well. And, I don't know, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think as long as we stray away from it being only male traits, then I'm okay with that definition, because it seems more generic or more general towards anybody.
Yeah.
But the second it starts saying like male traits, things that we see in men, that's where I disagree with it.
Yeah.
Because
I was just going to add to, these qualities are certainly something that a masculine person should have, or a man should have, a real man who's manly. But I think it's leaving out a few things. And I don't know what your background is, Josh. We've got, I come from a faith background and still in that. And in scripture, man, he talks about being protective. I think you were mentioning that earlier, the protection. I think that's a masculinity quality that we've lost a little bit in society, that we want to protect. We're part of our family. We want to protect that. We want to protect our spouse, our kids, our community. We want to reach out and wrap our arms around that and protect that from anything that may harm it, anything that may be toxic to it. I think that is probably a key characteristic. And that scripturally, that kind of falls a little bit more on the male than it does the female, if we go back and look at some of those traditions. So
yeah, it does. I don't think obviously protecting and providing, like, that's not bad. Like, so I don't want it to be like, well, men should stop doing that.
Right. And I don't want to say that women aren't capable of that, because there are single moms who can protect and provide for their kids, their family, whatever. And I totally respect that. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. For me, when it comes down to like those roles or those expectations, I don't think wanting to do those things is bad or is automatically toxic.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to provide for my family, or I would want to protect my family. Obviously, if they're in danger, if they're scared,
sure.
if they need help. I think it's the reasons why we want to do that. That's what makes it toxic. To maybe, if you want to do it just so that you assert yourself to be powerful over your spouse, however they identify as.
Yeah.
For me, it's always the why. It's never the what it is in the first place.
Right.
It's always the reason why, to be like, well, I have to be this because I am the man, and no other reasons why.
Is that Simon Sinek? Start with a Y.
Yeah. Exactly. Start with Y.
Start with a Y.
But just understanding why you want to do it, or why men want to do those things, that's where it gets into the bad area of it being toxic versus just being a person, or just being masculine in societies.
Motivation's the critical ingredient.
Yeah.
So the next line here talks about machoism.
Ooh.
So which sometimes can be confused with masculinity.
Back in the 70s.
Yes, machoism.
I know, I was there.
Which it says is a form of masculinity, but it really emphasizes power, kind of like what you were talking about, Josh, in a disregard for consequences. In responsibility, just kind of being macho because you can be man, going out and having a beer with the guys can be masculine and talking about manly things, and even sharing your emotions, I think, which can be masculine. But then staying out and being drunk and staying out until 4 o'clock in the morning and not coming home and making sure your kids are in bed or getting up when they're supposed to be. Why are you giving me that look, Doug? What's up with that? I'm just saying.
I think I'm just mimicking your facial expressions.
okay,
I'm watching you as you're talking, and like a 2-year-old will do when you're talking to them. They'll kind
I know you gave me that look, and I'm like, wait a minute,
I'm
what did I
feeling
say?
it.
What
I'm
did
in
I
there
say?
with you. I'm in there with you.
Okay, so the macho part can come into play beyond. I think and here's what I'm going to boil down to, and I'm going to spill my guts before we've really gotten into this conversation, and maybe this is a smart more conversation.
Okay.
I think the word or the phrase toxic masculinity is the same thing as saying a plastic rose. It's not a rose. It's plastic. Toxic masculinity can't be masculine because it's toxic. It's not masculinity. It's machoism. That's what I think.
So it's disqualified by virtue of its qualification.
It's disqualified for being masculine because it's not protecting. It's not taking in regard people, the value of people, the consequences of your action. That becomes machoality. So there is
because it's toxic. It's not genuine.
It can't be. A rose is a rose. Again, we can't manufacture a rose. We don't know how a rose came to being. It's creation. It grows. We plant the seeds. We breed roses. Whatever. But we make a plastic one. It's still not a rose. It looks like a rose. It doesn't smell like a rose. It can't feel like a rose. It's not a rose. It's plastic.
It's either it's genuine or false.
Right. So toxic masculinity is just toxic personality, in my opinion. I don't care what it is. I just can't. I just can't. You can't put the two together.
I see where you're going. I see where you're going with that. I get that. I think it's labeled. It has to have that masculinity side. I think because it just harps on it, like it expands all of these very masculine traits to an umph degree. Right. So I think that's why I'm okay with it being I'm not okay with it being a thing. I'm okay with that being a phrase because it's like masculinity on steroids or something to the point where it's, this is now dangerous. We've reached this point. But
the motivation has changed.
The motivation has changed and
Back to your point. Yeah.
I'm getting the plastic rose. I like that. I understand. I totally understand why you're saying that. But, or not, because that takes away everything I just said.
You have been watching.
You have, yes.
I've been trying to do that in my personal life too, where I'm just like, or if I just talk to friends, I'm like, I don't want to say but, so I'm like, and or something like that.
I try to go to however.
Yeah, that's
however.
I get what you're saying in that things are either false or they're genuine. They're either real things or the replicas. So it's either a real rose or it's a plastic rose, and because it's plastic, it's not real. So you're either masculinity, and if you say toxic masculinity, the fact that it's toxic indicates that it's false. That something's gone wrong. We'll say it that way.
Yes.
If it's toxic, something's gone wrong, so the masculinity is no longer genuine or valid. Right. It is disqualified by the toxicity.
Right. And I would.
Am I with you there? Am I feeling that?
You're right on it. Bingo. And I would call that machoism.
Big money.
I would call that machoism because we want to move beyond that. Because it's all about, at that point, it's all about strength and power. When I become macho, I want to put myself here and make everyone else down here.
Yeah.
A masculine person says, no, I'm going to be the foundation and let people, I'm going to support people. I think that's what real masculinity says in any sense, especially from a man's perspective. It's like, no, I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to be the foundation. I'm going to be the strength of a foundation. I'm going to be the leader of a foundation and put others in front of me and say, you have value, you have strength. I can help you get there. I can help you do that. That's a true test of masculinity, in my opinion.
It's a true test of selflessness in general, to be willing to be, to put yourself behind the scenes instead of in the spotlight.
Agreed.
It's kind of, there are some of us it's natural for and some of us it's less natural for, but just on a scale of selflessness, that sacrificial love thing is hard to argue with.
Yeah.
When someone is willing to put themselves aside to see you raised up or encouraged or moved ahead, then you have a hard time, I think you have a hard time arguing with that motivation.
Yeah. Well, and I think a macho man or a macho guy, I won't say man, a macho guy could not celebrate the success of someone else. A macho person, a macho guy in a job sees his coworker get promoted and he's pissed off.
Threatened.
I can't. Yeah, he's threatened. Exactly.
Ego's too fragile.
Yeah, exactly. Where the masculine guy goes, man, good on you. You know, anything I can do to help you, support you, I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you, because he knows there's an opportunity for him as well, because he's a leader and he's assertive. So the masculine guy says, I know there's a place for me. I can do the same thing and I can be successful like that as well. So that's my 2 cents. So, okay, next question. You ready? This one may take a little time and you could get some time to think. The most masculine, should I say masculine man or masculine person that you know?
I'd say person.
Okay.
I would say person because not only is it safer, I think it's just correct, because it will just still define it as men, masculine, women, feminine.
Okay.
But if you say person, it has more of a chance to encompass anybody.
Okay. All right. So I'm okay with that. So masculine person. Anyone? Go. I'm thinking right now. I'll throw out my daughters, because I asked her a minute ago. She was sitting in here in my office, and I said, "Can I quote you on that?" And she said, "Yeah." So she believes the most masculine person she knows is Harry Styles. So, Josh, what do you know? Are you familiar with Harry Styles?
I am.
How old are you? How old are you?
I'm 30.
30. Okay. My daughter's 22. So she just says, and this was her thing, because I've said, "Can I quote you on that?" She's like, "Sure." She said, any man who can wear a dress and paint his nails and be competent in his manliness is the most masculine person, in her opinion.
I agree with that.
Go ahead. You agree with that? Okay.
I do. I'm only having trepidation towards it all, because I don't want to automatically think of male. That's my biggest thing.
Okay.
So that's where I'm like, I agree with your daughter, but I also don't want to be like, well, obviously we can only list men. So that's why I'm just like thinking. But I agree, if you are so self-secure with yourself, which is what self-secure means, that you can do those things, and you're, more power to you. That's fantastic. Yeah.
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 Wait a minute. He was in One Direction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so out of the loop. I have no idea. I knew he was in Dunkirk, right?
Yeah.
He was in
That was
Dunkirk.
a good movie. Okay, that was a good movie.
Yeah. He was in One Direction and then broke off. Or not broke off. They had a long hiatus, I think.
Okay.
Yep.
And then they did separate stuff, and like 3 of them they're like all single artists. It's not like the olden days where only one of a boy band is really successful. It's really different with that group. But yeah, Harry Styles is I think the most popular one of
Yeah, he was when they were together.
Yeah, he was, especially when he was there together. Yeah. And he was
I heard part of his
worth is-
solo album a couple years ago. It came out. I think I was actually with Kelly out in Los Angeles, and he was playing it for me. It's really good. I was shocked.
He is really good. I like his music.
I went and saw him as One Direction there live. Don't tell anybody.
Everybody knows now for putting this out.
It was just, man, you couldn't hear anything but screaming girls. It was the closest I would get to having seen
Doug.
the Beatles live. Yeah, me.
Yeah. That's great.
I was going to say something about the conversation. Here's what I was going to say. Like those list of traits. Like if we're saying who's the most masculine person.
Okay.
And it's like if we're going to base it on the traits that you read, some of the people that I know that best embody those traits are women. Like one of the strongest human beings I know is my wife. Like I'm a big, huge guy, and I don't fear human beings. That's one person I would never tangle with. I would never mess with her. And not because she's mean or hard. Anybody who knows her, and I tell you wouldn't believe how tough she is. Oh, Jackie, she's so sweet. She's so nice. She's one of the most resilient. And when I say resilient, I don't mean that she just lasts through stuff. She is unchanged, like in her attitude toward people. I get really quickly kind of cold and jaded toward people that I feel are using me are kind of crossing the line, I'll start to cut them off and push back. Her generosity of spirit never wavers. And I think that takes a much stronger human being. It's pretty easy to cut somebody off and just go, that's enough for me. But to continue knowing that that person is going to, do whatever they can do to kind of take advantage of any situation they get, and to continue to treat them with respect and love in spite of that, I admire the crap out of that. I don't have that. I am not wired that way.
So when I'm hearing us kind of talk about it, kind of hammer through, it's like there's a lot of qualities of what we're talking about in masculinity that just a lot of really good human beings have.
Yeah.
Which I'm okay with. I love that. I'm just trying to. Are we really driving down into what true masculinity is, or just great qualities of a good human being and good people? I don't know.
I think we sliced something open and exposed it, but I don't think we've pointed it out yet.
Right.
Let me attempt to.
Okay, go for it.
Here's something that kept happening in the conversation when it started. It was disclaimers. But one of the disclaimers that kept coming up was this idea that if I say I am X, to some people who hear me say I am X, they immediately think I am saying you are not X, whatever X may be.
Right.
And a lot of this is nothing more than the conversational, the dialectic, the way that conversation moves due to our hyper social media world that we live in. I hate it too. It's always a factor. It always affects stuff like this because we begin to hear stuff on the defensive. And so when I hear somebody I don't even know and they say, well, I such and such and such and such, my reaction is, well, I do that too. Well, he never said I didn't. Yeah. That's just the way that I've learned to hear him, on the defensive. That's not truth. That's just how we understand one another on the default.
Yeah.
We automate, and it wasn't that any of the three of us were doing it, but we were what do you want to call it? Preambling our comments. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that and we're already covering for that, expecting the other people to have that cognitive thing happen, that snapback. And I think that's where all of this really goes back to, is conversation and the ability to not speak, because we all know how to do that readily. Listening. The listening. You're not listening, Linda. To listen. Actually hear the words and not just thinking about, oh, here's the thing I want to say next, because that's human.
Right.
Oh, I got to interject.
The Gentlementor.